Welcome to this edition of City Spotlight. Today I'll visit with Mark Hepner, the Executive Director of one of Des Moines' most noted historical locations, the Salisbury House and Gardens, which is located on Tonawanda in the west side of Des Moines. Also, then we'll talk with Tim Leach, the Executive Director of Economic Development of the Downtown Community Alliance, and Matt Anderson, our own Director of Economic Development, and we're going to talk about the EcoCore. We hope you'll stay with us. It's going to be a great day. Visit Des Moines, we have it all. Welcome back. I'm here at Salisbury House, located at 4025 Tonawanda Drive, with Mark Hepner, the Executive Director. Welcome to City Spotlight, Mark.
Well, thank you, and welcome to Salisbury House and Gardens.
Let's talk a little bit about the history of Salisbury House. A lot of our viewers probably haven't had the opportunity to get in here and see really a fabulous residence at one time, but now a very, very special place.
Well, it's interesting because it does have quite a unique history. I like to say it's a local jewel but a national treasure, and the fact of the matter is, a lot of folks don't realize that what it is, it stands as an icon to the American spirit. The gentleman that founded it, his name was Carl Weeks, was an Iowan boy done well, if you will, a self-made man at the turn of the century. And really he gathered his wealth by founding a company, the Armand Face Powder Company, which was a women's cosmetic company here in Des Moines, east side of the river downtown. And with that money, though, he made this, built this wonderful country house estate. And so what I like to tell people, I mean, what it is, it really stands for this guy who was entrepreneurial. He was a civic-minded individual, gave back to the community, a philanthropist. And but it had an interesting history because he found what we all found is that it's really expensive to keep up a place like this. So early in his years, he actually worked with Drake University, and they came under. He was on the board of directors at Drake, and came under and understand that he and his wife Edith would live here as long as Drake could use it as an art culture or art center, if you will, for the students. And that lasted for about 5 or 10 years, and Drake kind of realized, hey, this is really expensive to keep up too. So at that point, the Drake University and Carl Weeks agreed to turn it over to the Iowa State Education Association. For 47 years, they had this as their headquarters. So even the rooms that we're sitting in turned into offices. It wasn't until about 1998, 99, where a group of dedicated preservationists and historians and people around this neighborhood say, you know, this is something we need to preserve for the community. And so they got together, band together, and made a not-for-profit organization. And we had this, the Salisbury House Foundation, and today we actually operate as a not-for-profit historic house museum and really try to preserve and share this with the community.
So quickly highlight again, the mission and purpose of your nonprofit organization is to what?
It truly is. It truly is to preserve what was here, to restore so we can bring back what the way of life that it was during the family lived here, which really represented the Roaring 20s, which if you ask me, I think it was one of the most exciting times in American history, just with technology, innovation, and fashion, and music, and transportation. So what we're trying to do is bring back a way of life and share that with the community. And some people say, well, why is that important? And I will tell you that I think it is important because we truly need to know where we came from, to know where we're going, and to be better prepared moving forward. And so there's a lot of life lessons I think that Salisbury House can teach you. The stories, the legacy of Carl Weeks, this whole idea about community and community pride, and the fact that we have something of this quality sitting here in our own backyard in Des Moines, let alone in Iowa and the Midwest, is something that we as a community should be really proud of and embrace, because I think it tells a lot about us as a culture.
You know, as one drives up here, it has the look of an English manor house, and I think a lot of us who lived in Des Moines, you know, there was rumor or speculation that when the thing was built way back when, that, you know, he actually bought pieces over in England and had them shipped back over here. What really is the history of this?
I had somebody just the other day ask me, well, isn't it true that was brought brick by brick from England? And that's not quite the fact, but the reality is that the house was inspired by a home, if you will, that was called the King's House in Salisbury, England. Therefore, it's called Salisbury House. And Mr. and Mrs. Weeks were so inspired by this beautiful home that was in Salisbury, England, that was actually used by kings and queens and royalty throughout the years, dating as early as the 13th century. And so they wanted to kind of replicate that here in Des Moines. And they want to be authentic. And I think that's the real difference about Salisbury House versus some of these other great country houses that exist across the nation, is that they did do that. They actually dismantled specifically one house in Salisbury, England, and shipped over paneling, this fireplace behind us, flooring, that all dated from the 15th and 16th century. So what's wonderful when you come in here, it really is kind of an icon of the American, not only spirit, but workmanship and craftsmanship. But they also brought this authenticity that you can only find here in Salisbury. And I got to tell you, knowing this nation and its historic homes throughout the nation, you don't find something like this with the authenticity that you have here.
Now, it wasn't just put down as a house on a hill. I mean, it was set into with some sort of a vision, right? I mean, we've got gardens here, we've
Absolutely.
got patios, we've got all kinds of stuff going around, and we've done Shakespeare in the garden. And talk about that a little bit, and why it was set, you know, the way it was, and how extensive is this property?
It really was a goal with a lot of these homes that were being built about that time, turn of this century, all the way up till, what's great about Salisbury, it's one of the last great houses that was being built, because it was actually started in 23, finished in 28, and of course we all know what happened in 29. And so you don't see these homes being built after that. So it was one of the last great houses being built in the nation. And there was really this plan, this vision of incorporating the outdoors with the indoors. So oftentimes you would find solariums and places for even bringing greenery inside, which they did here as well. They would often have hothouses or conservatories so they can always raise plant material to keep it going throughout the year. But you also had this beautiful vista views that would extend out into the grounds. You'd have these expansive lands as you would here. Historically, it sat on around 10 acres. Today we have about 9.5 acres. And what's really, from what I understand too, is what we still have here is the virgin Iowan woodlands that are very unique with just a variety of species that are here. And part of that was Carl Weeks. He was a naturalist at heart, and he really believed that every tree should be saved. And there's something that I admire about him. He was also one of the earlier green guys, if you will. The house had a lot of recycled materials. One of the best stories, I think, is that if you go into our historic garage where the automobiles would be stored, if you look above on the ceiling, you'll see crates. The beams in the ceiling are made up of crates. And these are all shipping crates when he shipped over the antiques from New York, across the seas in Europe. And instead of throwing them away, he actually used them for the ceiling in the garage. He did a lot of things like that, old building materials, bricks that he stopped and bought from High Street that were going to be thrown away. And he bought them, brought them here, and used them in the construction of the house. So he really was ahead of his time in many ways, too.
In terms of your vision for not only the opportunity for citizens to view it, but how do you see Salisbury House being used now, moving into the 21st century, and we don't have the education group in here anymore, but yet I see a lot of events and other things that are happening. Talk to us a little bit how that evolved and how that's going to work.
When I arrived about a year and a half ago, that was probably the biggest challenge, is how do you take a place like this, truly a cultural asset, but knowing that the typical business model of historic house museums have really been challenged. The idea that you could just open up a place like this and have tours and that was enough, or people would support it because, well, it's important, it's beautiful, we need to do that. We know in this day and age that we have to justify everything that we do, just like any business. And so when I came in, one of the things we really looked at is, how are we making an impact in the community? What niches are we filling in the community, whether they're educational or what have you? And so we were looking strategic how we move forward. one of the first things we wanted to do was make it accessible. When I arrived, we were very limited about hours when people could come and visit. And I thought that was a real mistake. And so we have extended our hours now, and then people can come pretty much from Tuesday through Sunday, 10 o'clock to 5 o'clock any day. So we want to be accessible. We want to give options. I believe in giving everybody an option. I think when you come to places like this, the traditional model is, here, we're going to walk you around and tell you what you want to know.
Can we do a special event in here? I mean,
Absolutely.
If somebody calls, how would they do that?
Well, they would definitely contact either through the website or through our number, phone number, which is 515-274-1777.
And the website
is www.salisburyhouse.org. Okay. And what we're trying to do, and I'm glad you brought that up, is really extend more out to nonprofits, the business world, and let them know that this is here. That if you're going to have a business meeting, maybe it's a board of directors meeting, why go down to maybe a boring boardroom where you can come to Salisbury where you have this history, this legacy of leadership, and have an experience versus just coming and having a meeting. So we're all about experiences now, and that's what we want to offer the community.
Well, in a lot of the Mr. Weeks's vision about not only this place but his business and how he did things, it was a lot about civic pride. It was about place. It was about certainly in his own business, very, very successful. How do you see, because I know there's some of the groups that meet here think about the future of the city and what Salisbury House means to that, but you want to enhance that sort of a thought process, don't you? And
Absolutely.
How are you going to work to get that done? And I know that you've got a couple of groups that are working on it.
Well, when I got into town, one of the first things I knew, number one, I know you're only new for a short amount of time. So you got to take advantage of that. And I spent literally about 8 months going out to the community, talking to community leaders. And it wasn't about me. It was a little bit about the vision of Salisbury, but it was more importantly, what do they see as some of the needs in the community and how we can fill that role? Because I do believe that every nonprofit has a social obligation to the community that they're in. And it can't be just about how take. It's got to be about giving back. And so one of those, be honest with you, is that I heard very succinctly and quickly about this need for leadership and continue that next generation of leadership. And that was something that impressed me right away, that I was being told that, boy, passing the baton to those future leaders who are civically minded, like Carl Weeks, who want to give back to the community and make a positive change. And so I've been working with community leaders about developing kind of a next generation leadership group, if you will, that will be housed here because the inspiration that I can offer in the venue that I have here, but to begin to really talk about community issues and have, for lack of a better term, a think tank setting here at Salisbury, which I'm not sure if there's anything or a better place venue in this greater Des Moines area to have something like that. So trying to look at the needs of the community in a different way, filling those needs, and then looking beyond the audience that we were serving, which was a very small audience. Mm-hmm. We are south of Grand. We love it here. It's a beautiful setting, but also sometimes I think perception is that, Salisbury's not for me. It's for south of Grand. Or that they're financially stable over there because they're in this lovely area. Well, the truth of the matter is we're not.
Let's talk quickly as we kind of wind down. If I've got a family and some kids, what does it cost me to come to Salisbury House? Is there a cover charge? Or?
Absolutely. We always have to believe in cover charges. We actually offer any time of the day you can come for a self-guided tour, and it's $5 for adults, which is extremely reasonable. And I believe it's $3 for children. Okay. But we also offer guided tours twice a day. And the new thing that we offered is a Nooks and Crannies tour once a day, where you can go and see places that nobody's seen. Down to the tunnel of the house, up on the third floor where we have some of the interesting collections that nobody gets to see, like the shrunken heads, the arms and armaments, and just really curiosity pieces. But it gives you a glimpse of really the quality of the collection that's here in Des Moines. So we try to bring people in that way. And I think, as you alluded to, too, we're offering a lot of new educational programming and partnerships, too, that we can start serving families, which we weren't really serving before, as well as young professionals. That's a whole new audience that I feel probably more than anybody can walk away with a life lesson from Salisbury.
Mark, thank you so much. I'm glad you took the time to be with us on our show, and good luck. I think that you've got a good vision for the future of Salisbury, and it sounds like for our future leaders, you're going to try to get them engaged.
We're having a fun time doing it, and I appreciate you taking the time and being here as well, and all that you do.
You bet. Let's take a break. Moines, we have it all. Welcome back to City Spotlight. I hope that you found something on the community calendar that is going to be exciting for your family for January. As a benefit of the Department of Energy, specifically the Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant, we are able to begin the EcoCore project. And with me is Tim Leach, who is the Economic Development Director for the Downtown Community Alliance, and Matt Anderson, our own Director of Economic Development for the City of Des Moines. Welcome to City Spotlight, you guys. Let's talk a little bit about the EcoCore. What is that? And I know we're talking about energy efficiency, and we're going to talk about a lot of aspects of it, but let's talk about EcoCore. What is it?
Simplified, the project is designed to enable private building owners, private property owners downtown, to do energy audits and assessments of their buildings to determine ways that they can improve their buildings to make them more energy efficient. The ultimate goal coming out of that is that a more energy efficient building is a more marketable building.
Are there geographic boundaries to the area?
Well, we concentrated on the core of downtown, and that's where most of the competitive space buildings are, right in the
now,
the
for
downtown
viewers,
core.
Tell us what the core is, kind of.
Well, if you take a look at downtown 6th and Locust and work out in about a 3 to 6 block radius
Each way?
Each way, every direction. You're basically in the business core of downtown.
Okay.
And so that's the area we concentrated on, and that's where the vacancy in downtown buildings and competitive space buildings happens to be the lion's share is in that particular area. So working from a position of strength, we're inherently more sustainable downtown. How do we help the building owners make their buildings more marketable, and how do we get that word out that this is the sustainable place, this is the green place, this is the wellness place to be in the capital city.
Now, this is a project that we're working on specifically with the city and DCA. How does this partnership work between community development and Downtown Community Alliance?
The Department of Energy grant is actually a grant between the City of Des Moines and the Department of Energy. It's a $250,000 grant that we put together the programming for and applied for. What the DCA is helping us do is identify the buildings and the building owners that would like to participate. So the DCA has solicited the buildings. The City of Des Moines will solicit engineering firms to help and actual contract with those firms to do the energy audits of the selected buildings.
Tim, is there a limit to how many buildings can be involved in this, or?
Well, we put out the expression of interest and said we want to work with 5 buildings. It doesn't have to be 5. Hopefully we get more than 1. And so far we've gotten 7 responses back. So we're in the process of evaluating those buildings to see which 5 of those buildings, if it is 5, that we'd work with. So.
Looks like a lot of opportunities in downtown, because certainly there's some older buildings that need to be retrofit, and of course we're trying to also push it forward, like Wellmark's new building, to achieve a high level of energy efficiency and sustainability. And of course we'll keep our fingers crossed. We hope we're going to get some good information back on the Wellmark project, but they're going for a leadership and environment and energy design rating that I understand we hope is going to be the highest that they can attain. So is there a possibility that some of these retrofits that we can achieve much greater energy efficiency in some of these older buildings? And we got some great old buildings. I mean, we've got Art Deco buildings and some other things that really need to be preserved.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a good possibility that comes with these, what we're calling full sustainability audits, a roadmap that gets you to Energy Star or LEED certification. And so that map over time, you can start working and marching towards those things. And if you have to do some change outs, that'll show you what you need to do to get to that LEED certification, which is beyond energy. It has to do with air quality and natural light and those types of things. So we're real hopeful that this is something that the building owners can take and say, this is what I need to do, here's some things I can do immediately right now, and here's a way to continue to march towards the Energy Star LEED certification.
We already have a lot of the sustainable building blocks in place in downtown that gives us an advantage. The bus system, all the bus lines converge downtown. The infrastructure is already here. The parking garages are already built, ready for occupancy. The water lines, sewer lines, the street network is already here, as opposed to a greenfield development where an office building, if they go to that greenfield, all of that's going to have to be extended and supplied for them. We don't have to do that here. Everything's already here. Where the bicycle trail networks all converge downtown. I ride my bike from Beaverdale into downtown to work. So the network is already there. The green infrastructure is there. What we want to do is take the buildings, and we mentioned some old buildings. We have a couple different vintages of buildings downtown that have significant vacancy. They kind of fall into the 1970s, 1980s era buildings that their heating and cooling system and windows aren't state of the art anymore. It's time to make some upgrades. And then you get to the more historic buildings like the Des Moines building you mentioned, an Art Deco building. So you have the 75, 80-year-old buildings that certainly are ready for a complete overhaul. And ultimately, the goal in doing that, in making the buildings more sustainable, is you're looking toward the tenant's bottom line. When a tenant's making a decision to lease office space, they're looking at all of their operating costs, the rent, the property taxes, parking costs, and certainly a big occupancy cost is utilities. And if we can help these older buildings lower their utility costs and thereby lower the overall occupancy cost to the tenant, they're going to be more marketable in the marketplace.
Well, and I know that one of the goals, obviously, is occupancy and having a vibrant, sustainable, resilient downtown. And and again, we have assets in some of these buildings that everybody recognizes, and part of the fabric of what Des Moines is and what Des Moines was, and hopefully points us in the new direction. But maybe, Matt, you could explain, how are we working as we try to adaptively reuse and redevelop some of these properties, some of the uses that we're seeing, because it's been exciting. We've seen everything from an office building go to partial retail, partial hotel, partial residential.
Right.
What's the spectrum of opportunity, or is it limitless?
That spectrum of opportunity is one thing that gives our vacant buildings, and we do have a lot of office vacancy in the metro area. It's both downtown and in the suburbs. There's an equal amount of vacant space in the suburbs. Ours catches a little more attention because, as Tim said, it's concentrated in that smaller area. But the advantage that we have over vacant suburban office spaces is you generally won't take a vacant suburban office building and turn it into a condo project. That's just really not feasible. Here we have had the luxury of taking buildings like the Liberty Building is a great one that you kind of alluded to, where you have condominiums on some upper floors, some office space on some middle floors, and now we've just added a Hyatt Place hotel, and we have a health club on the ground level. So we have those opportunities with some of our vacant space that may be functionally obsolete in the rental market, but provides us with great opportunities for mixed-use buildings, and all of that continues to add to the vibrancy of downtown and make it a more desirable place to live and work.
What do we think? Is this just a kickoff or a beginning to what we hope to have happen in downtown, or are we just going to limit it to these few projects and see how it goes, and 10 years from now we'll come back and see how it played out? Or do we think that this really is the tip of the iceberg, and we're going to advance the ball in all areas around our core?
I really believe it's just the tip of the iceberg. I believe that this grant and allowed this EcoCore concept to grab some traction, but I think there's a whole wellness spectrum that goes along with this, and talking in the LEED certified, for example, it goes beyond energy efficiency. It's how healthy is the building, and healthier buildings have employers that are in LEED certified buildings, less absenteeism, higher productivity. It's because people are healthier and they're happier. And with the wellness spectrum, some of the other things that we have here is finance companies, financial wellness, family wellness from a financial standpoint, the World Food Prize, and people really concerned about where their food comes from. Couple that with a farmer's market that does a lot of things on the organic food and the trail system, the physical fitness part of it, the wellness that Wellmark is into, is happy to see people get healthier so there's less health claims. I think this energy thing is the low-hanging fruit. It helps grab some traction on this EcoCore, but I think there's a whole wellness spectrum that we can put our hands around and backdrop in Des Moines.
Now, I'm going to selfishly tell you that while I've toured some of the new structures that are in the outlying areas, I have talked to also many of the people that work in those places who have told me how much they miss, quite frankly, being downtown. They miss the connectivity in the buildings, they miss the skywalks, they miss being able to run a quick errand without jumping in a single occupant vehicle to either go to the mall or go someplace else in downtown. They seem to feel like they were attached to everything. And from when they got to work to when they left at night, anytime during the day, they could easily move around and not either be in inclement weather or have to get in a vehicle to go someplace. And if they even have to go up to the Capitol, we've got a shuttle that runs them all around downtown. And I think some of the work that we've done in partnership with DCA has really helped make Des Moines attractive. And quite frankly, other cities around the country notice it. And they see how vibrant Des Moines is, and certainly our whole area, our whole metro area is prospering. But I think that downtown is really been strong. What do you see as the next step? How long is it going to take to roll this thing out?
The buildings are being selected. Our engineering department will be issuing an RFP for consulting services in January, and we'll get the consultants on board in the first couple months of the year, and they'll start analyzing the buildings. This is probably a project that we'll get the structures analyzed in the next 3 or 4 months, and recommendations will come forward to those building owners. And then really a phase 2 that comes out of this Department of Energy grant is actually working with those building owners to implement the suggested changes. That's going to be a longer-term proposition. That's going to really be driven by market conditions and the developer's ability and willingness to make those improvements. But we're hoping that in the second half of 2011, we have at least 2 or 3 of those building owners that are starting to do the design work and make the plans to implement those energy efficiency improvements.
I think one of the things that we can take away, and especially for our viewers, is here's a project and a demonstration of what we can do not only in our workplace, but some of the things that they can take home and do. I know that a lot of our viewers are going to want to have an opportunity to kind of follow the progress of this. So Tim, could you tell us how can they keep up to date on it? Is there a website or is there a phone number? How do they find out more about what's going on?
The easiest way is a website, downtowndesmoines.com, spelled out, and we'll have information updates on EcoCore all from now on as this project gets to fruition, and then as we add projects to it. So. And
is there a phone number, and you have or would you be the contact person then to follow up on?
515-286-4944.
All right. Tim and Matt, thank you very much for being on the show today, and I think that this kind of work is what excites people about living and staying and raising a family in Des Moines.
Hope so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
So that wraps up this edition of City Spotlight. We hope we found some things that will excite you and your family and show how Des Moines is moving forward. So until next time, we hope that you'll enjoy the replays of this. But I'm Mayor Frank County, and this is City Spotlight.